Have you ever had to make a life-changing decision in a split second? A choice that could risk everything you've worked for? Today's true story is about a man who did exactly that, and what happened next will leave you speechless. The rain hammered down like bullets against Marcus Williams' windshield. Each massive drop exploded into a dozen more, turning the night into a blurry mess of water and darkness. Lightning cracked across the sky, lighting up the empty highway for just a second before plunging everything back into shadow. "Come on," Marcus whispered, squinting through the storm. His old Honda Civic shook as wind blasted against it. The wipers slapped back and forth at top speed, but they were losing the fight against Mother Nature's fury. This wasn't just rain. This was the kind of storm that makes the news. The kind that floods streets and knocks out power. The kind that smart people avoid by staying home. But Marcus Williams didn't have that choice. Before we begin this story, kindly tell us where you are watching from. Have you ever worked multiple jobs just to make ends meet? Do you know what it's like to sacrifice sleep, free time, and your own dreams just to provide for someone you love? Marcus did. Every single day. At 32, Marcus was a single father raising his 8-year-old daughter, Zara. His wife had passed away from cancer when Zara was just 3, leaving Marcus to figure out parenthood all on his own. During the week, he worked as a mechanic at Patterson's Auto Repair. On weekends, he stocked shelves at the local grocery store. 2 jobs, 7 days a week, all for one little girl with big dreams. "Disney World, Daddy. When can we go to Disney World?" Zara would ask, her eyes wide with hope as she pointed to the commercial on TV. "Soon, baby girl, I promise," Marcus always answered, though his wallet told a different story. But tonight, for the first time in years, that promise didn't feel like a lie. Marcus was driving back from Nashville, 3 hours from home, where he'd interviewed for a job at a logistics company. The pay was nearly double what he made at the garage, with benefits and normal working hours that would let him be home when Zara got back from school. The interviewer had smiled, shaken his hand firmly. "We'll be in touch by the end of the week, Mr. Williams." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. It was hope, something Marcus hadn't felt much of lately. Lightning flashed again, closer this time. The thunder that followed shook the car. Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles turning white. The weather report had promised light showers. This was more like driving through a waterfall. "Maybe I should pull over," he muttered to himself, checking his watch. It was already 9:30 p.m. Mrs. Jenkins from next door was watching Zara, and he'd promised to be back before 10. That's when his headlights caught something on the side of the road. At first, Marcus thought it was just debris, maybe a fallen tree branch or garbage blown by the wind. But as he got closer, his heart skipped a beat. It was a motorcycle, a huge one, lying on its side, and next to it, a figure in black leather wasn't moving. What would you do if you saw someone who needed help, but stopping might put you in danger? We all like to think we'd be heroes, but when that moment actually comes... Marcus slowed down, his mind racing. The massive bike had skidded off the road, and even through the rain, he could make out the patches on the leather jacket, the skull logo, the words Hell's Angels in bold letters, the Memphis patch beneath it. A Hell's Angel, injured, alone, in the middle of a storm. Every warning bell in Marcus's head started ringing. Don't stop. Don't get involved. Just call 911 when you get to a place with better cell service. Think about Zara. Think about yourself. But something else pulled at him too. His father's voice, clear as day. Son, Your character isn't defined by what you do when people are watching. It's defined by what you do when no one is. Marcus checked his mirrors. Not another car in sight. Just him, the storm, and a man who needed help. He had a choice to make. Before I tell you what Marcus did next and how it changed his life forever, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This channel brings you incredible true stories of ordinary people facing extraordinary moments. Moments that test their courage, their compassion, and sometimes their very survival. You won't want to miss a single one. Now, let's get back to Marcus, the storm, and the fallen biker whose life hung in the balance. Marcus's fingers hovered over the turn signal. Part of him, the logical, self-preserving part, screamed to keep driving. A black man stopping alone at night to help a Hell's Angel? That wasn't just risky, that was asking for trouble. He glanced at the photo taped to his dashboard. Zara, with her gap-toothed smile, wearing the too big baseball cap he'd bought her last summer. She needed him to come home safe. She'd already lost one parent. But as Marcus watched the rain washing over the still figure on the ground, another memory surfaced. Stronger, clearer, impossible to ignore. He was 10 years old, riding in his dad's pickup truck on a cold winter night. They'd spotted an elderly woman standing beside her broken-down car, shivering in the snow. "Dad, why are we stopping?" young Marcus had asked. "We don't know her." His father, a tall, quiet man with hands rough from 30 years of construction work, turned off the engine and gave Marcus a look he'd never forget. "Son," he'd said, "there are two kinds of people in this world, those who look away when someone's hurting, and those who stop to help. Your grandpa was the helping kind. I'm the helping kind. And as long as you're my son, you'll be the helping kind too." That night, they'd spent 2 hours getting the woman's car running again. When she tried to pay them, Marcus's father had refused. "Just remember to stop for the next person who needs help," he'd told her. "That's payment enough." Now, 15 years later, Marcus pulled his car onto the shoulder of the road. The rain immediately found its way inside his collar as he stepped out, soaking him to the skin within seconds. "This is crazy," he muttered, but he was already popping the trunk. He grabbed his emergency kit, the one Zara had helped him put together after watching a safety video at school. Flashlight, first aid supplies, reflective vest, bottled water. Marcus zipped his jacket against the downpour and jogged toward the fallen rider. Up close, the scene was worse than he'd thought. The massive Harley had skidded several yards, leaving dark scratches on the asphalt. Its front wheel was bent at an ugly angle, and parts of the chrome were smashed beyond repair. The man lay face up in the rain, eyes closed, blood mixing with water on his forehead. His leather jacket, covered in patches, pins, and what looked like years of road dust, was torn at the shoulder. But worse than that was his right leg, bent in a way no leg should ever bend. Marcus's heart pounded. Was the man even alive? "Hey!" he shouted over the storm, kneeling beside the biker. "Can you hear me?" The man's eyes snapped open, startlingly blue against his weathered face. He tried to move, then winced in pain. "Don't try to get up," Marcus said, opening the first aid kit. "I'm going to help you." The biker stared at Marcus with confusion, maybe suspicion. "Who the hell are you?" "Name's Marcus. What's yours?" There was a pause, the biker clearly deciding whether to answer, before he growled, "Diesel." "Okay, Diesel. I'm going to check your injuries. Then we'll get you out of this rain." Marcus took out his phone to call 911, but the no service message confirmed what he'd feared. The storm had knocked out reception. "Phone's dead," he told Diesel. "How bad is the pain? Scale of 1 to 10. 8, Diesel admitted through gritted teeth. "Legs broken for sure. Maybe ribs, too." Rain pounded against them as Marcus worked. He cleaned the head wound as best he could and wrapped it with gauze from his kit. The broken leg was trickier. He couldn't move it without causing more damage. "Hospital's about 15 miles east," Diesel said, reading Marcus's thoughts. "But I ain't leaving my bike." Marcus looked at the wrecked Harley, then at Diesel's leg, then at his own compact car. "Your bike's not going anywhere tonight," Marcus said firmly. "But you are. We need to get you to a doctor before that leg gets worse." "Why are you helping me?" Diesel asked suddenly, his blue eyes narrowing. "You don't know who I am." The question hung between them, amplified by the thunder overhead. Indeed, why was Marcus, a black single father with everything to lose, risking himself for a white biker with Hell's Angels patches? "My dad taught me that you help people because it's right, not because it's easy," Marcus said simply. "Can you stand if I support you?" The next 20 minutes were a painful, slow-motion nightmare. Every movement made Diesel curse through clenched teeth. The rain made everything slippery, and Marcus nearly fell twice while supporting the larger man's weight. Diesel was at least 6 feet tall and solid muscle beneath his leather jacket, not an easy person to move. "Almost there," Marcus encouraged, guiding him toward the Honda. "Just a few more steps." Finally, they reached the car. Getting Diesel into the passenger seat was another challenge. The broken leg couldn't bend normally, and the pain nearly caused the tough biker to pass out. Once Diesel was settled, Marcus ran back to secure the motorcycle as best he could, pulling it further off the road and covering the seat with a tarp from his trunk. He didn't know much about motorcycles, but he knew they were expensive and clearly important to their owners. Back in the car, Marcus cranked the heat and handed Diesel a bottle of water from his emergency kit. "Thank you," Diesel said, the words sounding strange from him, as if rarely used. As Marcus pulled back onto the empty highway, he noticed Diesel studying him with a curious expression. "What?" Marcus asked. "Nothing," Diesel replied. "Just trying to figure you out." The 15 miles to the hospital were tense. The storm showed no signs of letting up, and Marcus had to fight to keep the car on the road as water pooled in dangerous puddles. Diesel remained mostly silent, occasionally giving directions or grunting in pain when they hit a bump. "You got family?" Diesel asked suddenly, breaking a long silence. "A daughter, Zara. She's 8. "Good age," Diesel nodded. "My kids are grown. Got grandkids now." He paused, then added, "Your little girl would be proud of what you're doing tonight." Marcus glanced at him, surprised by the unexpected sentiment. "Take this next exit," Diesel instructed, grimacing as pain shot through his leg. "Hospital's 2 miles down on the right." The emergency room lights glowed like a beacon through the rain as Marcus pulled up to the entrance. He helped Diesel inside, supporting most of his weight as they limped through the automatic doors. The nurses sprang into action at the sight of them, soaking wet, one bleeding from the head, the other clearly supporting a man twice his size. "Motor vehicle accident," Marcus explained. "Broken leg, possible head injury, and broken ribs." As they wheeled Diesel away on a gurney, the biker caught Marcus's arm. "You didn't have to stop," he said, his voice gruff but sincere. "Most wouldn't have, not for someone who looks like me." Marcus thought of his father, of the lessons that had shaped him. "We all look the same in the rain," he replied. "Just people who need help sometimes." What neither man knew then was that this chance encounter, a single choice made on a stormy highway, would change both their lives forever. 3 weeks passed since that stormy night on the highway. The rain had stopped, but dark clouds of a different kind were gathering over Marcus's life. It started as a normal Tuesday at Patterson's Auto Repair. Marcus arrived early, as usual, checking his work orders for the day. He had 5 oil changes, 2 brake jobs, and a transmission flush. Normal stuff. Easy money. "Marcus, can I see you in my office?" Mr. Patterson's voice was different, tight and uncomfortable. Something was wrong. The small office smelled like old coffee and motor oil. Mr. Patterson, a balding man in his 60s who'd owned the shop for 30 years, couldn't meet Marcus's eyes. "What's up, boss?" Marcus asked, though his stomach was already knotting up. Mr. Patterson sighed heavily, removing his glasses to rub the bridge of his nose. "Marcus, you've been one of my best mechanics for 5 years now. Never late, never sloppy, always honest with the customers." "I sense a but coming," Marcus said quietly. "But," Mr. Patterson nodded, looking miserable. "I'm going to have to let you go." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. This job was his main source of income, the job that paid his rent, kept the lights on, put food on the table for Zara. "Why?" Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. "Did I do something wrong?" "It's not your work," Mr. Patterson said, placing a hand on his desk. It's Mrs. Hendricks." Marcus blinked. "The lady with the blue Buick?" "She saw you that night, Marcus, helping that biker, the Hell's Angel." Suddenly, it clicked. Mrs. Hendricks, a wealthy widow who lived in the fancy part of town, had driven past them on the highway that night. Marcus remembered seeing headlights, but he'd been too focused on getting diesel into his car to notice who was driving. "She's been calling my other customers," Mr. Patterson continued, "telling them I employ people who, how did she put it, associate with known criminals. Said she saw you helping a dangerous gang member, and that she won't bring her car to a shop that hires people with those kinds of connections." Marcus felt his face go hot. I was helping an injured man in a storm. He could have died out there. "I know that," Mr. Patterson said, his voice heavy with regret. "And if it was just Mrs. Hendricks, I'd tell her to take her business elsewhere. But she's called at least a dozen other customers. I've already lost 3 major accounts: the Henderson family, the Crawfords, even Pastor Williams from First Baptist. Because I helped someone who was hurt?" Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. Mr. Patterson looked genuinely sad. "This is a small town, Marcus. People talk, and some people, well, they make judgments without knowing the whole story." "Mr. Patterson, please. I've got a daughter to support. This job is everything to me." "I'm sorry, son. I really am. I'll give you 2 weeks severance pay and a good reference. It's the best I can do." Marcus cleaned out his locker in a daze, placing his tools, many bought one by one over years of saving, into his old toolbox. Co-workers gave him confused looks or avoided his eyes altogether. News traveled fast in a garage. The drive home felt like moving through a nightmare. 2 weeks severance wouldn't cover next month's rent. The grocery store job only gave him 20 hours a week at minimum wage. The logistics company in Nashville still hadn't called back. "What am I going to do?" Marcus whispered to his empty car. That evening, he tried to act normal as he made Zara's favorite dinner, spaghetti with extra cheese. He watched her twirl the noodles around her fork, talking excitedly about her day at school. "And then Ms. Rivera said my science project was the best in the class. She said I might win the whole science fair if I work on my display board a little more." Zara beamed, marinara sauce dotting her chin. "That's amazing, baby girl," Marcus said, forcing a smile. "I'm so proud of you." "Daddy, you know what we need for my display board? Those special markers that Sarah used last year. The ones that sparkle. Can we get those?" Marcus felt a stab of panic. Special markers? He was about to lose their apartment, and she wanted special markers? "Sure thing, sweetheart," he heard himself say. "We'll pick some up this weekend." After dinner, as he tucked her into bed, Zara looked up at him with those big brown eyes. Her mother's eyes. "Daddy, why do you look so sad?" Marcus froze for a second, then sat on the edge of her bed, smoothing her curly hair. "Just tired from work, that's all." "Is everything okay?" He looked at his daughter, so smart, so perceptive, so innocent, and forced another smile. "Everything's fine, baby girl. I promise." But as he kissed her goodnight and turned off the light, that promise felt like a stone in his stomach. In the kitchen, Marcus spread his bills across the table like a deck of bad cards. Rent, $950 due in 10 days. Electric, $137, already 5 days overdue. Car payment, $275 due next week. Groceries, at least $300 to get through the month. Zara's after-school program, $200 they absolutely couldn't do without since it covered the hours he worked. And now, sparkly markers for a science project. The math didn't work. Not even close. Marcus called the electric company first thing in the morning, begging for an extension. "Please," he said, his voice low so Zara wouldn't hear from the next room. "I just need a little more time." "I can give you until the 15th, the woman on the phone said. "But after that, we'll have to disconnect service." The landlord was less understanding. "Rent's due on the 1st, Mr. Williams. No exceptions." By Friday, Marcus was desperate. He'd applied for every mechanic job within 50 miles. He'd called old friends, asking if anyone knew of openings. He'd even considered selling his tools, though without them, he couldn't work as a mechanic at all. That night, after Zara was asleep, Marcus sat on his front porch, head in his hands. The night was clear and cool, so different from the storm that had started all this trouble. He thought about Diesel, wondered if the man had any idea what helping him had cost. Was it worth it? Marcus whispered to the night air. His father's words came back to him. Your character isn't defined by what you do when people are watching. It's defined by what you do when no one is. But his father had never had to explain to an 8-year-old girl why they might be homeless next month. Would you have made the same choice as Marcus? Would you have stopped to help someone who society told you to fear? Would you risk your job, your security, your family's future to save a stranger? Or would you have driven past, telling yourself it wasn't your problem? Before you answer, remember this. Sometimes the right choice doesn't feel right at all when you're facing the consequences. Sometimes doing the right thing costs more than we ever expected to pay. But here's the question that keeps Marcus awake at night. If he could go back to that stormy highway, knowing what would happen, would he still stop to help? The answer to that question, and what happens next in this incredible true story, will absolutely shock you. Keep watching to find out how Marcus's world is about to be turned upside down again. 2 days after losing his job, Marcus woke to the sound of thunder. No, not thunder. Something else. Something familiar. Motorcycles. At first, it was distant, a low rumble that might have been a truck on the highway a mile away. But the sound grew louder, closer, until it became impossible to ignore. Marcus looked out his kitchen window, coffee mug frozen halfway to his lips. "What's that noise, Daddy?" Zara asked, looking up from her cereal bowl. Before Marcus could answer, the rumble became a roar, and then the first motorcycles appeared at the end of their street. Not one or two, but a wave of them, gleaming in the morning sun. "Stay inside, baby," Marcus said, setting down his coffee with a shaking hand. He stepped onto his front porch just as the motorcycles began pulling up in front of his small house. One after another they arrived, massive Harleys with chrome pipes that flashed in the sunlight. The riders were just as imposing as their machines, big men in leather vests covered with patches, some with beards, others with tattoos crawling up their necks and arms. By the time they stopped coming, Marcus counted at least 40 motorcycles parked along his street, on his lawn, and in his driveway. Across the street, Mrs. Patel stepped onto her porch, then immediately retreated inside, pulling her curtains shut. Next door, Mr. Johnson stood in his driveway, phone in hand, clearly debating whether to call the police. Throughout the neighborhood, faces appeared in windows, some curious, most afraid. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. What was happening? Had he somehow angered these men? Was this retribution for something? The lead rider, a massive man with a gray beard and arms like tree trunks, killed his engine. The others followed suit until the roar faded to silence. The quiet that followed felt even more threatening than the noise. The bearded man removed his helmet and looked directly at Marcus. His eyes were hidden behind mirrored sunglasses, but his mouth was set in a hard line beneath his thick mustache. Then another rider stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal a familiar face. "Diesel," Marcus whispered. It was indeed Diesel, walking with a slight limp, but otherwise fully recovered from his accident. He wore the same leather vest covered in patches, but now Marcus could see them clearly in the daylight. Hell's Angels arched across the top, the Death's Head logo in the center, Memphis across the bottom. "Marcus Williams!" Diesel's voice boomed across the quiet street. "Get out here!" Marcus glanced back at his house, where Zara was surely watching from the window. He took a deep breath and walked down his driveway, suddenly conscious of every neighbor watching this scene unfold. "Diesel," he said carefully, stopping a few feet from the bikers. "This is unexpected." "Heard you lost your job," Diesel said without preamble. His blue eyes were serious beneath his weathered brow. "Heard it was because you helped me that night." Marcus felt a chill. "How did you know about that?" "We have ways of finding things out," Diesel replied. Then his expression softened slightly. "Actually, my cousin's wife works at the hardware store next to that garage. She overheard your boss talking about it." The big bearded man stepped forward, extending a hand the size of a baseball mitt. "I'm Bulldog, president of the Memphis chapter. Diesel here told us what you did that night." Marcus shook the offered hand cautiously. "Anyone would have—" "No," Bulldog interrupted, his voice like gravel. "They wouldn't have. Most people see the patches and cross the street. You saw a human being who needed help." Marcus looked around at the circle of bikers who had gathered around him. Their faces were serious, but not threatening. Some nodded in agreement with Bulldog's words. "Look," Marcus said, lowering his voice, "I appreciate you coming by, but this is a quiet neighborhood. People here are nervous." "Let 'em be nervous," said another biker, a tall man with a shaved head. "We're not here for them. We're here for you." Diesel stepped closer. "Marcus, we have a code. It's about respect, loyalty, and brotherhood. You showed me respect when most people wouldn't. You risked your safety to help me when I was down. In our world, that means something." "I didn't do it for thanks," Marcus began. "We know that," Bulldog said. "That's exactly why we're here." Diesel reached into his vest, and pulled out a thick envelope. "This is from all of us. It's not charity, it's a thank you." Marcus hesitantly took the envelope. When he peeked inside, his knees nearly buckled. The envelope was stuffed with cash. Tens, 20s, 50s, hundreds. He quickly closed it, looking around to make sure nobody else had seen. "I can't accept this," he said, trying to hand it back. "You can, and you will," Diesel said firmly. Then he nodded toward the road. Another motorcycle rumbled up the street, this one moving slowly, led by a rider who wasn't wearing a helmet. The bike was beautiful, smaller than the others, with gleaming chrome and deep blue paint that sparkled in the sun. The rider parked it in front of Marcus's house, then walked back to join the group. "This is for you too," Diesel said, gesturing to the motorcycle. Marcus stared at the bike, then at Diesel, then at the envelope in his hand. "Guys, this is too much." "Listen," Bulldog said, his authoritative voice silencing Marcus's protest. "You showed respect when you didn't have to. You showed courage when it would have been easier to drive on. In our world, that means everything." An older biker with salt and pepper hair nodded. "My daughter was in a bad accident 10 years ago. Car flipped 3 times. Know who stopped to pull her out before the car caught fire? A stranger who didn't know her from Adam. Sometimes good people show up when you need them most." Diesel placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "I know what it's like to be judged by what people see on the surface. The patches, the bikes, the reputation. You didn't judge me. You saw someone who needed help, and you helped. That's rare." Marcus was speechless. After weeks of feeling like the universe was punishing him for doing the right thing, this felt like something from another dimension. Just then, the front door of Marcus's house opened. Zara, unable to contain her curiosity any longer, came running out in her pajamas and slippers. She stopped short when she saw the crowd of intimidating bikers, her eyes going wide. Marcus's heart leapt into his throat. "Zara, go back inside." But before he could finish, Diesel was already kneeling down to the little girl's level, his whole demeanor changing in an instant. "Well, hello there," he said, his gruff voice somehow gentler. "You must be Zara. Your daddy told me all about you when he helped me fix my ouchie." Zara looked at Diesel with cautious curiosity. "He did?" "He sure did. He said you're the smartest, bravest little girl in Memphis." A small smile broke across Zara's face. "You have a motorcycle." "We all do," Diesel said, gesturing to the bikes lined up along the street. "And that blue one right there? That's your daddy's now." Zara's mouth fell open. She looked at Marcus. "Daddy, is that true? Do you have a motorcycle now?" Before Marcus could figure out how to answer, Bulldog stepped forward. From inside his leather vest, he produced a small teddy bear wearing a tiny leather jacket with Hell's Angels stitched across the back. "This is for you, little lady," he said, handing it to Zara. His voice, which had sounded like rocks in a blender when addressing the other bikers, was now as gentle as a grandfather's. Zara clutched the teddy bear to her chest, beaming. "Thank you. He's so cute." The transformation was remarkable. These men, who had scared the entire neighborhood into locking their doors just minutes ago, were now smiling at an 8-year-old girl in unicorn pajamas. Several of them chuckled as Zara showed off her new teddy bear. "What's his name?" she asked Bulldog. The big biker looked momentarily stumped. "Well, he doesn't have one yet. Thought maybe you could name him." Zara studied the bear thoughtfully. "I'll call him Thunder," she declared, "because he's loud but not scary once you get to know him." The bikers erupted in laughter. Even Marcus couldn't help smiling at his daughter's perfect assessment. A younger biker with a red beard stepped forward. "Hey, little one, want to sit on a real motorcycle?" Zara looked up at Marcus with pleading eyes. "Can I, Daddy? Please." Marcus hesitated, looking from his daughter to the bikers surrounding them. A week ago, he might have said no. A day ago, he definitely would have. But now, watching these tough men melt around his little girl, something shifted in his perspective. "Okay," he said, "but just sitting, no riding." The red-bearded biker helped Zara onto his motorcycle, making sure she was secure before letting go. Her face lit up with excitement as she pretended to rev the throttle, making vroom-vroom noises that had the bikers grinning. Mrs. Wilson from across the street was now openly watching from her yard, her earlier fear replaced by confusion. Mr. Johnson had put his phone away. Even Mrs. Patel had cracked her curtains to peek out at the strange scene. Diesel moved closer to Marcus, speaking quietly. "The money in that envelope, it's about $3,000, should help until you find something new. And the bike, it's not brand new, but it runs perfect. Save you some gas money." "I don't know what to say," Marcus admitted, still trying to process everything. "Don't say anything," Diesel replied. "Just remember that appearances can be deceiving. People see our patches, they think they know us. People see your skin, they think they know you. But real recognizes real, Marcus. You're good people, and we take care of good people who take care of us." As Marcus watched his daughter happily chatting with men who looked like they belonged on America's Most Wanted rather than his front lawn, he realized something profound was happening, not just in his life, but in his entire understanding of how the world worked. Sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes the most unlikely friendships create the most beautiful stories, and sometimes the very people society tells you to fear are the ones who show up when everyone else walks away. The morning after the biker's visit, Marcus sat at his kitchen table staring at the envelope full of cash. He'd counted it 3 times, $3,247. Enough to cover rent, utilities, and food for the next 2 months while he searched for a new job. Outside, the blue Harley gleamed in the driveway, still looking out of place next to his old Honda. Neighbors had been peeking through their curtains all morning, watching the motorcycle as if it might suddenly roar to life on its own. Zara sat across from him, happily coloring a picture of her new teddy bear, Thunder, with the sparkly markers Marcus had bought her on the way home from school yesterday, a small luxury he could now afford. The phone rang, startling him from his thoughts. "Hello?" Marcus answered, expecting another bill collector. "Is this Marcus Williams?" asked a deep voice with a slight Spanish accent. "Yes, speaking." "My name is Eduardo Rodriguez. I own Rodriguez Auto Service. We have 6 locations throughout Memphis." Marcus sat up straighter. "Yes, sir. I know your shops." "I heard about what happened at Patterson's," Rodriguez said without preamble. "How you lost your job because you helped someone in need." Marcus's brow furrowed. "How did you—" "Let's just say I got a call from some mutual friends," Rodriguez interrupted. "I need a shop manager for my new location on Poplar Avenue. Pays twice what Patterson was giving you, plus health insurance, paid vacation, and a retirement plan. Can you start Monday?" Marcus nearly dropped the phone. "Sir, That's very generous, but I'm just a mechanic. I've never managed a shop before." "Patterson says you're the best mechanic he ever had. Says you're honest, hardworking, and good with customers. That's what I need. The rest, I can teach you." "I don't understand," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you offer this to someone you've never met?" There was a pause on the line. Then, "Mr. Williams, I came to this country with nothing but the clothes on my back. Someone took a chance on me when nobody else would. Now I take chances on others who deserve it. Besides," his voice took on a hint of amusement, "when the Memphis Hells Angels vouch for someone, I listen." The job was everything Rodriguez had promised, and more. The shop was brand new. With state-of-the-art equipment Marcus had only read about in automotive magazines. His staff, 3 experienced mechanics and 2 apprentices, respected his knowledge and followed his lead without question. And the money. The money changed everything. His first paycheck was more than he used to make in 2 weeks. Suddenly, bills weren't a source of panic, groceries weren't a careful calculation, and Zara's future wasn't a constant worry. But the biggest change wasn't the job or the money. It was the unexpected friendship that bloomed between Marcus's small family and the rough-around-the-edges bikers who had adopted them. It started with Diesel dropping by one evening to check on the motorcycle. "You riding it yet?" he asked, examining the blue Harley with a critical eye. Marcus shook his head. "Honestly, I'm a little intimidated. Never been on a motorcycle before." Diesel looked at him like he'd grown a second head. "Well, that won't do. Can't have you owning a bike you don't ride. I'll teach you." That weekend, in an empty parking lot behind the mall, Diesel patiently showed Marcus how to balance the motorcycle, how to use the clutch, how to lean into turns without falling over. "You're a natural," Diesel said, after Marcus successfully navigated around the makeshift course. "Must be all those years fixing engines." As weeks passed, the friendship deepened. Diesel wasn't just a motorcycle instructor. He became a regular presence in their lives. He showed up with pizza on Friday nights. He fixed the leaky faucet in Marcus's bathroom that had been dripping for months. He helped Zara with a particularly challenging math problem that had her in tears one Tuesday evening. "How do you know all this stuff?" Marcus asked one day as they worked together to change the oil in his Honda. Diesel shrugged. "Been around a while. Pick things up. Did 2 years of college before I dropped out to work full-time at my uncle's garage. Life takes you places you don't expect sometimes." The more time they spent together, the more Marcus realized how wrong his assumptions had been. Yes, Diesel was a Hell's Angel. Yes, he looked intimidating with his leather vest and tattooed arms. But he was also a father of 3, a grandfather of 2, and a man who volunteered at the local animal shelter every other Sunday. "People see the patches and think they know everything about me," Diesel said one evening as they sat on Marcus's porch watching the sunset. "Just like they see your skin and think they know everything about you. Worlds full of people making judgments without knowing the story." Other members of the club became familiar faces too. Bulldog, the chapter president, turned out to be a retired master sergeant from the army with a surprising talent for baking. He brought homemade cookies whenever he visited, which Zara declared were even better than the store ones. When Zara's school announced their spring play, a musical version of The Wizard of Oz, she was cast as Dorothy. The night of the performance, Marcus arrived early to save seats. "Save one more," Zara had insisted that morning. "I invited Mr. Diesel." Marcus had smiled but doubted the biker would actually show up to an elementary school auditorium filled with parents and teachers. Yet 10 minutes before curtain, there was Diesel, walking down the aisle in clean jeans and a button-up shirt, his leather vest nowhere to be seen. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," he said, sitting next to Marcus. "Got my own ticket to make sure they let me in." He pulled out a slightly crumpled program from his pocket. When Zara spotted them from the stage during her first scene, her face lit up brighter than all the stage lights combined. After the show, as parents and children mingled in the school cafeteria, Diesel pulled something from his jacket pocket. "Got something for you and the kid," he said, handing Marcus an envelope. Inside were 3 tickets to Disney World, a hotel reservation, and plane tickets for a long weekend in July. "We can't accept this," Marcus said automatically, though his heart raced at the thought of finally fulfilling his promise to Zara. "It's not just from me," Diesel said. "It's from the whole club. Consider it a thank you for everything you've taught us these past few months." "What have I taught you?" Marcus asked, genuinely confused. Diesel's weathered face softened. "That sometimes the right person coming into your life at the right time can change everything. That judging people by how they look or what group they belong to means missing out on knowing who they really are." That July, as Marcus watched Zara's face light up at the sight of Cinderella's castle, he thought about how strange life could be. 6 months ago, he was working 2 jobs and barely making ends meet. Now he had a career he loved, friends he never expected, and was standing in the place he'd promised to take his daughter for years, all because he'd stopped to help a stranger in the rain. Have you ever misjudged someone based on how they looked? Has a stranger ever changed your life with unexpected kindness? Share your story in the comments below. Life is full of second chances and unexpected friendships. Sometimes we just need to be brave enough to reach out when it matters most. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories that will change how you see the world. Now, as Marcus's journey continues, you won't believe the ripple effect that one simple act of kindness created. 1 year after that stormy night on Interstate 40, Marcus received an unusual envelope in his mailbox. It wasn't a bill or junk mail, but a formal invitation printed on heavy cardstock with the Hells Angels logo embossed in the corner. "What's this?" he wondered aloud, sliding his finger under the seal. Inside was an invitation that made him stop in his tracks. The Memphis chapter of the Hells Angels. Motorcycle Club requests the honor of your presence as honorary ride captain for our annual Children's Hospital charity ride. Saturday, May 15th. Marcus read it twice, sure there must be some mistake. Ride captain? Him? He'd only been riding his motorcycle for a few months. That evening, Diesel stopped by as Marcus was grilling burgers in the backyard. Zara was helping, carefully arranging cheese slices on a plate while dressed in her new favorite outfit, a tiny leather vest that Bulldog's wife had made especially for her. "Got the invitation?" Diesel asked, accepting a cold soda from Marcus. "Yeah, but there must be a mistake. I'm still a beginner rider. Shouldn't the ride captain be someone with more experience, like you or Bulldog?" Diesel shook his head. "It's not about riding skills. It's about what you represent." "What do I represent?" Marcus asked, flipping the burgers. "Change," Diesel said simply. "See, before you came along, our chapter did 1 charity event a year because it was expected. We raised maybe $5,000, got our picture in the paper, and called it good. And now we're doing something every month. Thanksgiving, we served meals at the homeless shelter. Christmas, we did a toy drive for foster kids. February, we organized a blood donation event. All because of you." Marcus looked confused. "I didn't suggest any of those things." "Didn't have to," Diesel replied, taking a sip of his soda. "You changed how we think about ourselves and what we're capable of. You reminded us that respect goes both ways, that we have to give it to get it." Zara piped up from where she was arranging condiments on the picnic table. "Daddy says actions speak louder than words." Diesel grinned at her. Your daddy's right about that, Squirt. The day of the charity ride dawned clear and bright. Perfect motorcycle weather. Marcus arrived at the meeting point, a large parking lot outside the Memphis Children's Hospital, to find over 100 motorcycles already lined up. Not just Hell's Angels, but riders from other clubs too. The Iron Horsemen, the Bandidos, even some weekend warriors with no club affiliation at all. What's going on? Marcus asked Bulldog, who was organizing riders into formation. Word got around, Bulldog explained. This isn't just our ride anymore. It's become something bigger. Diesel walked up, handing Marcus a special vest with "Ride Captain" embroidered on the back. Put this on. You're leading us out today. As Marcus slipped on the vest, a small voice called out, Daddy, look at me. He turned to see Zara running toward him, wearing her miniature leather vest and a tiny helmet decorated with butterfly stickers. Behind her walked Bulldog's wife, smiling proudly. She insisted on being part of the ceremony, she explained. Hope that's okay. Before Marcus could answer, a hospital administrator approached the group, looking nervous but determined. I just wanted to thank you all for doing this, she said, addressing the sea of leather-clad bikers. The children are so excited. Many of them can't leave their rooms, but we've arranged for them to watch from the windows. Sure enough, when Marcus looked up at the hospital, dozens of small faces were pressed against the windows of every floor. Some were waving, others held up handmade signs. One read, "Thank you, bikers," with colorful motorcycles drawn around the edges. We've already collected over $10,000 in donations, the administrator continued, and with today's ride, make that 15,000, Bulldog interrupted, handing her a check. The clubs pooled together. The woman's eyes filled with tears as she accepted the check. This will fund our new pediatric treatment room. We're going to name it the Road Warriors Room in your honor. As the riders prepared to depart, Marcus felt a tug on his jeans. He looked down to see Zara staring up at him. Can I ride with you, Daddy? Please. He hesitated. She was only 9, too young to be on the back of a motorcycle for a long ride. But before he could answer, Diesel rolled up in a gleaming motorcycle with an attached sidecar. Special arrangement for our youngest road warrior, he announced, winking at Zara. Tested and safety approved by Grandpa Diesel himself. Zara squealed with delight as Marcus helped secure her in the sidecar, making sure her helmet was properly fastened and safety belt clicked tight. When everyone was ready, Bulldog handed Marcus a small red flag, the signal for the ride to begin. Marcus looked out at the sea of motorcycles stretching behind him. Hell's Angels, other club members, independent riders, all united for a common cause. Ready, ride, Captain? Diesel asked. Marcus nodded, raised the flag, and kicked his bike to life. The roar of 100 motorcycles starting up at once was like thunder, but this time, it wasn't a storm approaching. It was a wave of goodness rolling through the city. As they pulled out of the parking lot, Marcus glanced down at Zara in her sidecar. Her face was pure joy as she waved to the children watching from the hospital windows. Many waved back, their small faces lighting up at the spectacle. The procession wound through Memphis, turning heads everywhere they went. People came out of shops to watch. Cars pulled over to let them pass. At every stoplight, bystanders took photos and videos. What's happening? Marcus asked Diesel at one red light, gesturing to the crowds. You're changing how people see us, Diesel replied. One ride at a time. The most surprising moment came when they passed the First Baptist Church, where Pastor Williams, one of the customers who had stopped coming to Patterson's garage because of Marcus, was standing outside after Sunday service. Instead of turning away, the pastor raised his hand in a respectful wave. "Did you see that?" Marcus called to Diesel over the rumble of engines. Diesel nodded. "Ripple effect, brother. Starts with one stone in the water." By the time they returned to the hospital, the fundraising total had reached $17,380, more than 3 times what the club had raised in previous years. News cameras were waiting, and reporters asked for interviews. Bulldog pushed Marcus forward. "He's our ride captain. Let him do the talking." Standing before the cameras, with Zara by his side in her tiny leather vest, and Diesel and Bulldog behind him, Marcus felt a strange sense of coming full circle. "A year ago, I stopped to help someone on a rainy night," he told the reporter. "I didn't know then that I wasn't just helping one person. I was starting something much bigger." "And what's that?" the reporter asked. Marcus looked around at the unlikely family he had found, tough bikers who had turned out to have hearts as big as their motorcycles. "A reminder that you can't judge a book by its cover," he said. "And that kindness creates more kindness." Later that evening, as Marcus and Zara joined the bikers for a celebration cookout at the clubhouse, he watched his daughter moving comfortably among these men who had once seemed so intimidating. She was showing off her Road Warrior certificate to anyone who would look, proudly explaining how she had ridden in the sidecar the whole way without being scared even once. "She's something special," Diesel said, joining Marcus by the grill. "Just like her dad." "None of this would have happened if it hadn't rained that night," Marcus mused. "If I hadn't seen you on the side of the road. Or if you'd decided to keep driving," Diesel added. "But you didn't. You stopped. And look what happened because of it." Marcus looked around at the transformed clubhouse, once a place outsiders feared to approach, now decorated with thank you cards from hospital children and photos from community events. A chain reaction of good all started on a stormy highway when one man chose compassion over fear. "The rain stopped," Marcus said quietly, "but the ripples just keep going." 2 years after that stormy night on Interstate 40, Marcus sat on his front porch watching the sunset. His life had changed in ways he never could have imagined. The shop he managed for Rodriguez was now the most successful in the chain. The blue Harley in his driveway had been joined by a newer model that he'd bought himself. And Zara, now 10 years old, had more uncles than any child in Memphis, each one ready to move mountains for her if she asked. Diesel pulled up, the familiar rumble of his motorcycle announcing his arrival before he came into view. These visits had become a weekly tradition. Sunday evenings on the porch, watching the day end as they talked about everything and nothing. "Got something for you," Diesel said, handing Marcus a framed photograph. It was from the most recent charity ride, their biggest yet. In the picture, Marcus stood in the center, his arm around Zara. Surrounding them were members of not just the Hells Angels, but 5 other motorcycle clubs as well. Behind them, a giant check for $25,000 was being presented to the Children's Hospital. "Look at us," Marcus chuckled. "Who would have thought?" "Not me," Diesel admitted, settling into the porch chair next to him. "I figured that night in the rain was just another bad break in a life full of 'em. Instead, it turned out to be the best thing that could have happened." Marcus studied the photograph. The mix of faces, races, backgrounds, all united for a common purpose. "You know what my dad used to tell me? He said most people see the world in black and white, good guys and bad guys, us and them. But the real world isn't like that at all." "What's it like then?" Diesel asked. It's in color, all kinds of colors, all mixed together. Beautiful if you take the time to really look at it. Marcus set the frame on the small table between them. Before I met you, I thought I knew what a Hell's Angel was. I had this picture in my head. Most people do, Diesel nodded. Just like they have pictures in their heads about single black fathers, or ex-military guys, or people from the wrong side of town. Easier to put folks in boxes than to see them as individuals with their own stories. A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched the sky turn from blue to purple to deep orange. My grandmother had this saying, Diesel said finally. She'd tell me, Thomas, that's my real name, Thomas, the eyes are useless when the mind is blind. Smart lady. She was. Raised me after my parents split. Taught me to look deeper than what's on the surface. Diesel leaned forward in his chair. That's what you did that night, Marcus. When you saw me lying there on the road, you didn't see a patch or a stereotype. You saw a human being who needed help. I just did what my father taught me, Marcus said simply. And that's changed hundreds of lives since then. The kids at the hospital, the folks at the homeless shelter, the schools where we do supply drives now. Even the way the community sees the club has changed. Diesel shook his head in wonder. All because one man made one choice on one rainy night. From inside the house came the sound of Zara's laughter. She was on the phone with Bulldog's granddaughter. The two had become inseparable friends despite their different backgrounds. That's the real miracle, Marcus said, nodding toward the sound. Zara's growing up seeing beyond labels. She's not going to make the same assumptions we did. Next generation's always got a chance to do better than we did, Diesel agreed, if we teach them right. The sun was almost gone now, just a sliver of gold on the horizon. In its fading light, Marcus could see how much older they both looked in the photograph compared to that night 2 years ago. Not just older, different, changed from the inside out. You know what's funny? Marcus said. People look at us, you with your patches, me with my skin color, and they think they know our story. They think they can predict who we are, what we believe, how we'll act. But they don't know anything, Diesel finished. Not a damn thing, Marcus agreed. Because the real story isn't what people can see. It's not about patches or color or any of that. It's about the choices we make when no one's watching. It's about seeing each other as human beings first, everything else second. Diesel raised his soda in a toast. To seeing in color. Marcus clinked his glass against Diesel's. To seeing in color. As darkness settled over the neighborhood, porch lights began to flicker on up and down the street. 2 years ago, neighbors had peered fearfully through their curtains at the bikers on Marcus's lawn. Now they waved as they walked by, some stopping to chat about the next charity event or to ask how Zara was doing in school. Courage isn't about not being afraid, Marcus said, thinking back to that stormy night. It's about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. It's about helping someone even when it's risky or inconvenient. And compassion isn't just feeling sorry for people, Diesel added. It's about seeing yourself in them, recognizing that we're all just trying to make it through our own storms. In the quiet of the evening, with crickets beginning their nightly chorus, Marcus realized something powerful. That rainy night hadn't just been about him helping Diesel. It had been about both of them finding something they didn't know they were looking for, a friendship that defied every expectation, a connection that transcended social barriers, and a purpose bigger than themselves. This true story reminds us that the most important things in life can't be seen with our eyes. They can only be understood with our hearts. If this message touched you today, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. In the comments below, tell us about a time when someone unexpected changed your life, or when you looked beyond stereotypes and found something beautiful on the other side. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear right now. The rain that had brought Marcus and Diesel together years ago had long since dried, but the lessons from that stormy night continued to nourish something rare and precious, a reminder that in a world determined to divide us, the simplest act of human kindness can build bridges strong enough to last a lifetime. Sometimes the most courageous thing we can do is to stop when everyone else keeps driving by. Sometimes the most revolutionary act is to see the person instead of the prejudice. And sometimes, just sometimes, a single moment of compassion can create ripples that change not just one life, but an entire community. The storm had passed, but what grew in its wake would continue to flourish for generations to come.